Thank you both for joining me. When I was chatting with your teams about this conversation today, it was very clear that both of you have such a strong point of view on culture at this moment. And between the two of you, you have built multiple successful businesses, so you understand scale, you understand change, and so I'm excited to sit down with you to talk about how you're leading your teams through change, and also to give some of those in the audience some ideas on how to manage their teams through this very anxious period. But Macro Talk is focused on the big picture and is also focused on the future of work, and I do want to start with news this week. There has been significant backlash to the AI movement. There was an unfortunate incident in Indianapolis where a councilman who voted to approve a rezoning measure that would allow an LA company to build a data center, he was targeted in his home. Someone shot into his home, and the attacker left a note on his doorstep saying, "No data centers." What is going on right now with the societal perception of AI and how you're thinking about it as you're building? Because the timelines are merging right now. The feeds, right, are merging. Eric?
So in my view, I think that means the power of AI is truly meaningful, right? It's more like a natural reaction. So for any new technology, it's always like that. This time, I think AI is unprecedented, right? In terms of the impact to human beings, to society, right? I think we have to move forward, think about the future, right? I think I'm still very optimistic, right? I do not think it makes sense, right, to pause all the data center building. Eventually, you still need to do that, but we got to manage the risk associated with that, right? So that's probably the better path forward.
But Arvind, the message is clearly not being received in many local communities, and these initiatives are actually making a significant impact on these build-outs. The New York Times had a report, and they were looking at independent data showing that in major cities, development has actually stymied for the very first time in a number of years. So from your perspective, how does the message actually get across to everyone who is not, the first order beneficiaries of this movement?
Yeah, look, AI it's a powerful technology, and it's going to be here with all of us. And I think what we're not doing a great job on is how can it actually benefit all of us, and how can it actually go from being a Silicon Valley movement and where all the beneficiaries are here to know it's actually going to change your work. It's going to actually remove those sort of the most frustrating part of your work or the most tedious things that makes you spend 50 hours and still you feel behind. So we have to do a better job making AI a tool that is not so much about job loss and it's more about up-leveling you, reskilling you, and allowing you to do things that you always wanted to do, which is strategic work, creative work, and take some of that mundane sort of low-level things out of your day-to-day work.
Yeah, I don't think this audience in particular has a problem with that. I think it's a question for me because as you're going out to market, does this public societal perception have an impact on how your companies can grow and how the industry at large can grow when we know the physical constraints of data centers is so key to the entire unlock of the promise of AI? So I guess aside from buying a media company like TBPN, what are the other solutions from your vantage point that you can do to change the narrative or to help get that message across more clearly?
I think every high-tech company, in particular Silicon Valley, right, will be part of that. So together, not only do we build the technology, but also all the high-tech companies together, if we can create some brand new job opportunities, right, and help everyone's productivity, and also drive the GDP growth, I think ultimately, the people will understand that, right? Again, as I mentioned, it's a natural reaction. As time goes on, I think everyone will understand we need to move forward with the help of technology.
Well, we'll see, because again, it's troubling, I'm sure, when you see these headlines that leaders are being, targeted and policymakers. The other big news this week, Ronan Farrow's very deeply reported piece into OpenAI and Sam Altman, revealing all sorts of details about his ouster. Is Sam Altman ruining AI for everybody? I mean, it just seems like every time he's in the news, the perception is so linked to what he does. So I'm curious how you guys are looking at his particular presence and his personality in the industry.
Well, I mean, I think for us, we are an enterprise-focused AI company. And one thing that, while, you're mentioning, these negative perceptions of AI, but when you think about enterprises, and these are not businesses in Silicon Valley, you talk about a business in Columbus, Ohio, or anywhere really, in US, outside of US, the belief in AI is very, very high, and there is no business that we come across that does not want to embrace this technology, that does not want to actually bring the power of AI to all of their employees. And one of the most encouraging things that I see is businesses are not just thinking about how can I actually use AI to increase my top line or optimize my bottom line? How do I make more profits? There's a lot of focus also on how do I actually modernize my workforce? How do I make every person better? Mm-hmm. How do I get them to leverage AI in their day-to-day work? So actually, there's a very positive sentiment towards AI when it comes to businesses, and so I would sort of just challenge you a little bit on that. Yes, you see these stories, and of course, AI does have problems that it creates. There's going to be some job loss, which is going to be painful to people. But largely, I would say that the sentiment, is positive.
Yeah, sentiment for sure. I mean, it's different. Eric, what were you going to say?
So my perspective, we all should give Sam and OpenAI a great credit. Remember the ChatGPT moment, right? Mm-hmm. When we downloaded ChatGPT, we all benefited from that. Right? Afterwards, I think the ChatGPT moment gave us a lot of imagination about what AI can do for us, right? Look at afterwards, so many new startup companies, a lot of innovations, right? We all need to thank for OpenAI and Sam.
Yeah, I think it was more around, again, the general perception of AI the public has. And there's been lots of surveys and studies done about public perception and anxiety. And I just wonder if it doesn't hinder, right, that noise doesn't hinder your growth. So what I'm hearing is it doesn't really impact what you're doing day to day, all of this other noise from other companies and CEOs. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're working harder, right, to make AI really benefit the society. So.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's get into work. Arvind, you've said something that really gave me the germ of this idea of this topic. You said on a podcast, there's a lot of noise about AI transforming work. There's far less about what's really working really inside of real companies. You guys have just put out a report around what is working. So tell us what is working at this very critical moment.
Yeah, so I think AI today is really, in terms of impact, multiple orders of magnitude better than last year. We have gone well beyond experiments and POCs to fundamentally changing how people work. Everybody knows about software engineering, where now many companies actually have banned humans manually writing code. It has to be written by AI. I mean, that's actually so when you think about that transformation, that particular work, that has completely now done by AI. Similarly, we're seeing big success in customer success. When people have questions, the enterprises are actually now able to leverage AI to significantly optimize, their call centers. Something that Eric,
Human contact center.
Yeah, exactly. And but use cases now are actually not limited to specific departments. These successes are now, companies are having it across HR, finance, marketing, sales, and but what I would say is that today we're still very much we're trying to sort of build our muscle memory around AI. We're trying to make more and more people inside the company use it, the same way as your top 10% of the employees use it.
Eric, something that was really striking to me is that when you began Zoom, the second thing you did was to write down the culture of the company after you bought some used furniture. So when you think about culture now, and if everybody has AI agents to manage, how do you create culture at a company when your coworkers are AI agents?
That's a good question. I know how to make our employee happy because that's sort of our culture to deliver happiness. I still do not know how to make our agent happy. So maybe
Do they need to be happy? I mean, don't they just work for us? Like, who cares about their happiness?
agent work for 24 hours, 7 days, right? As long as we have a power, right? I think agent probably will be happy. Again, that's the reason why you leverage technology, right? To build a great culture, every day you need to think about, right? How to do more for your employees, right? Make sure they're happy, they can deliver all the tasks. If you deploy agent, guess what? Turn on the power, it works, right? This is much better. So
You guys have known each other for a while. Glean and Zoom also partnered up very recently. Is that the future right now of software? Is more integrations like this? Today I think Intuit also announced something around building into Claude, and I know you guys are working with Workday. I'm getting the sense that the future of this entire industry is actually more collaboration around SaaS. Would you agree?
Absolutely. While we sometimes hear questions about some enterprise systems locking down data, I think that's largely the theme is AI has truly increased interoperability with technologies like MCP, and businesses are realizing that there is a lot of valuable information in their systems. Like if they let other systems easily use that information, like you can actually get more usage and more value that you can drive for your customers. So when we see since we are actually very much we depend on applications being open to add value, and we've seen that over the last 1 year we've been able to build hundreds of these new integrations where there was no way to tap into those enterprise systems before with APIs, but now you can.
You both also have slightly different views on the future of work. Arvind, you have said that you don't want to actually shrink teams. You don't want to go to meetings anymore. You're trying to send your digital avatar. What is the future really going to be like? Is it going to be more of what Arvind is building or more of what you're building?
I think first of all, we build a product agent, right? Glean also built a product agent. The two agents can work together, and also, moreover, my personal agent can interact with my friend Arvind's personal agent. We can schedule a meeting, like our earning call. I do not read any script anymore, right? During our earning call, I just play my AI avatar. We did very well for 3 quarters in a row already.
I guess, well,
Again, not the best experience yet. In the
don't you miss
future, I can
talking to
send my
Arvind?
digital
I mean, you
twin.
guys are friends. Aren't you going to miss talking to each other? That's the whole point, right? Of technologies to connect each other. Now you're adding another layer. I don't know. Arvind, how do you feel that, Eric doesn't want to talk to you anymore, that he's sending his digital avatar to talk to you?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like talking to that avatar, or rather have my avatar talk to his. I actually think a little bit differently about agents. I think we are right now, I think, extending the power of AI more than where it really is. We saw, I think the first time we really saw agents with true delegation and agency was with OpenClaw, and where you sort of have this model and architecture where you let an agent run continuously, indefinitely. Let it actually, don't really give it a task, let it figure out on its own how it should spend, that 40 hours of the day, of the week that it works. Or in the agent's case, it's actually more like, it's always working. And you've seen that when you do that, AI is just not anywhere close to be able to figure out on its own what to do with all that time. It has done random things, when people let OpenClaw run, what kind of things happen. So my view with agents today is that agents are going to actually be oriented to do specific tasks, and they're still going to need a master, which are humans. And so yes, I can have 10 agents. I can have one of those, that's a communication agent that talks to my business partners. But ultimately, I don't put them at the same level. I still think our company is composed of human employees, and each one of them may have their own personal agents that are helping them do their work.
I guess I wanted to know really quickly, yes or no, bureaucracy will go down inside of companies. Bureaucracy will go down, yes or no, inside of companies as we all rely more on our AI agents? Like, is there going to be less like politics and kissing up to people and water cooler talk? Like, is there going to be less of that as we have more AI-enabled coworkers, companions?
Depends on which agent you deploy. If you deploy our agent, yes, no politics, so it works so well.
Okay.
One thing is, I think there's some behavior in the enterprise around information control, and that kind of goes away with AI, because I think everybody is going to have free access to all the information and data inside the enterprise. So, maybe some good things will happen.
All right, lightning round. We're wrapping up soon. Who owns the AI decision? Okay, you've got CFO, CEO, CPO, CIO, CTO. Who gets the veto power? Who should have that final say?
Founder.
Okay, so CEOs. When it comes to costs, and you're thinking about the trade-offs of what you're investing in and what is not, how are you prioritizing? What is the best way for companies to prioritize right now where they're investing in AI?
I think my perspective is we got to look at it from a customer perspective, right? There's so many internal initiatives, right, to drive AI adoption, but we got to think about how to leverage AI to truly delight the customer, build something to add more value to a customer. We prioritize those tasks.
How are you measuring ROI right now, Arvind, in terms of the investment, but also you've got this new system that you can track employees, not track, but AI can see what the employees are doing, and it's actually helping with, reviews at the end of the year, which sounds a little bit like surveillance, but I don't know. You tell me. How do you measure ROI with workers and with the technology?
Yeah. Well, the ROI, so AI is first. I think when you think about rolling AI inside the business, part of it is just like moving with times, educating your workforce, making progress that way. So it's not like you're not looking for top line or bottom line. You're just like getting AI to drive education and be ready for the future. But then, when you think about measures of how much value it is driving, the best way to do it is look into your existing divisional metrics that you have. For example, for your customer support team, you track how many tickets one agent can handle. And so use that same metric, pre-AI, post-AI, and see what movement is there. Inventing new metrics is going to be, people are going to gamify that. So you have to work with your existing business metrics and see real movement onto them.
One economic measure you're both watching very closely. Eric?
Revenue growth.
No, economic, like on the macro level. Is it inflation? Is it unemployment?
That's a GDP growth.
GDP growth. Arvind?
Yeah, same GDP growth.
Okay, and a last question for fun. You have to trade companies to run with someone tomorrow. OpenAI or NVIDIA? Which one?
Both.
No, you have to choose one, Eric.
It's hard, impossible.
I know, you got to choose one. Tomorrow you wake up and they say you have only one job. Is it going to be OpenAI or is it going to be NVIDIA?
Jensen's company, NVIDIA.
And Arvind?
Is the question...
which company would you rather run?
Which one I'd rather run? I don't know if I have the ability to run either. It's too complex for me.
All right, we'll get a real answer backstage. Arvind, Eric, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.